Okay, guys, it is Thursday, May 21. Time for the 2-minute drill. And the big topic today is Dak Prescott versus the Dallas Cowboys when it comes to contract demands. Solly, should the Cowboys just, acquiesce and give Dak the money he wants?
No, they shouldn't. And I think it would be financially irresponsible to give him the $40 million per season, particularly in 2020, when right now the salary cap is $198 million. So they would be essentially giving him over and above 20% of the salary cap, which is a no-no. Simply, you should not do it. I'm afraid they're going to be forced to have Dak Prescott play under the franchise tag, which is $31 million for the 2020 season. And then they're going to have to kick the can down the road. Maybe they can get this deal done going into next season when the salary cap is much larger. And then maybe you can give him $40 million a year then, but not right now.
Yeah, and there's even a question as to, with this pandemic, whether the salary cap will be larger. So it's a really tricky situation for Dallas. The tough part that they're in, they bought into a new head coach in Mike McCarthy, 2 young receivers on rookie deals, and then Amari Cooper on a $20 million per year deal. If they're stuck with Andy Dalton this season, it's going to be a pretty big disappointment for Dallas and their fans. Because I think they have pretty high hopes. And for that reason, I might not, cave on Dak's biggest demand, but I'm going to cave a little bit on Dak's demands moving forward.
I think they need to ask themselves, how much is the difference between a borderline top 5 quarterback and a borderline top 10 quarterback worth? Because with the situation they've built themselves in Dallas in terms of receiving help, in terms of offensive line, in terms of coaching, we've seen that same kind of system elevate Andy Dalton in 2015 to a borderline top 10 guy. I think it'll put Dak about the top 5, but that difference is probably not worth $40+ million a year to me. So I think you put a price on it and you walk away if it gets too high.
Yeah, and I think Eric had a really good point that the economic impact brought about by the COVID-19 virus, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market moving forward. I think Dak needs to try to get the best deal that he can get right now. Let's move on to our second question, because we want to know who's the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC West.
I'm going to answer that with a negative. I think the Los Angeles Rams are the least threatening team to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC West. You look at them, they went from one of the more efficient teams using dollars per wins on offense to one of the middle of the pack. And again, when you pay Jared Goff all that money, now what happens? Wade Phillips has to go. Fossil, their special teams coordinator, has to go. And a lot of starters on that defense, Eric Weddle, for example, have to go. And they're just going to struggle. So for me, it looks between Seattle Seahawks and Arizona Cardinals, and give me Russell Wilson any day of the week in that matchup.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you in lockstep. I really want to make the case for the Arizona Cardinals because I think they could put this together quicker than people are expecting them to. Kyler Murray looked really good as a rookie. They've made some big steps in the offseason. Getting Nuke Hopkins for a steal is one of the single biggest moves in the offseason. But ultimately, Russell Wilson over the past couple of seasons has been as good as any quarterback in the NFL, and that's too big a factor to look beyond.
There's no doubt. I think you guys are both right. I think Arizona right now is building a defense and modeling its personnel group to be able to defend against Kyle Shanahan and that 49er offense. I just don't think they're quite there yet. But the Seattle Seahawks, I think this is a slam dunk with Russell Wilson. If he has the ball in his hands on a very last possession, typically he is going to win the game. They nearly beat the 49ers in both games last season. I think it was only an inch from that goal line that would have really sent the playoff picture on the NFC side of the ledger headed in a different direction. That's how close Seattle was to toppling a great season by the 49ers. So I think it's still Seattle. In fact, it could happen in 2020.
Yeah, speaking of, it's the New Orleans Saints here, Thomas, in a sort of Chris Carter-like possession receiver role. And that has a lot of people wondering, is Thomas truly an elite wide receiver or just a system wide receiver? Sam, what do you think?
I think he is a system wide receiver, but not in the negative way everybody wants to use it to beat him with. I think ultimately he is a product of what he's being asked to do, and the criticisms of he doesn't have the deep numbers that a Julio Jones or a Tyreek Hill has is just because they're not asking him to do that. The Saints have specific roles for receivers in that offense, and deep targets go to Ted Ginn the same way they went to Devery Henderson years back. So Michael Thomas doesn't go deep because he's not asked to go deep very often. But when he does, he gets the ball at a greater rate than a lot of these, deep threat receivers. And when the ball comes his way on those deep targets, he's catching them more efficiently than a lot of these deep threat receivers. So he's a system receiver because he's being held back by the system.
Guys, I got to tell you something. Every player is a system player. Every player who comes into the National Football League, what do they got to do? They got to get the playbook. They got to figure out how they're going to fit and work within that system. And if they can't, they're not going to be successful. Even Chris Carter, when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, go look at his numbers. They were nothing like what they were when he went to the Minnesota Vikings. They moved him inside to the slot. And now his trajectory was headed straight to Canton. And so it was really about finding himself in a system. Now, Jerry Rice's guy may be able to play in multiple systems. I really believe that Michael Thomas, yes, he's a system player, like you said, Sam, but this guy, he wins the contested catch rate. He really makes the offense go. They have leveraged his ability within that system to become a better offense and a better football team. And so I don't see any way that you can knock Michael Thomas because they're asking him to do a job. And I think right now he's doing it better than anyone else in the NFL.
I think you guys are 100% right. He is a system player, but at the same time, they ask him to do everything in that system. No wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints last year had more than 500 receiving yards, and that offense was still good enough to get them to 13-3, despite the fact that they had to play a backup quarterback in 5 of those games. So Michael Thomas, it might not be as pretty as some other players. It might not be as flashy or as valuable as, say, a Chris Godwin, but he's a great receiver, and most teams would take him any day of the week.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.